for a written transcript of this meeting, or if you need reasonable accommodations, including this communication in an alternative format due to disability, please contact the Clerk to the Commission's office at 404-612-8232.
Which one is this one? All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the August 2nd regular meeting of the Fulton County Board of Commissioners. It is exactly 10 o'clock a.m. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Chairman Rob Pitts.
Present.
Commissioner Bridget Thorne.
Present.
Vice Chairman Bob Ellis.
Present.
Commissioner Dana Barrett.
Present.
Commissioner Natalie Hall. Commissioner Marvin Arrington Jr. Commissioner Khadijah Abdul Rahman.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
All right, please rise for the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Almighty and gracious God, we are grateful for this day, for your continued grace and mercy upon our lives. We pray now your peace and your power upon those who are present. Bless now our leaders, give them your strength and direction. It is in your name that we humbly pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, continue, Madam Clerk.
On page 2, consent agenda. 230472, adoption of the consent agenda. All matters listed on the consent agenda are considered routine by the County Commission and will be enacted by one motion. No separate discussion will take place on these items. If discussion of any consent agenda item is desired, the item will be moved to the regular meeting agenda for separate consideration.
All right, motion to approve by Commissioner Thorne, seconded by Commissioner Barrett. Commissioner Abdul Rahman, you have the floor.
Chairman, I wanted to hold item 23-0513.
What page, Commissioner?
That is page, I'm sorry.
That's on the regular agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Page
that's on,
11.
I apologize, that's on the regular agenda. We're doing the consent agenda.
All right, so anything else on the consent agenda? Hearing none, motion on the floor is to approve. Let's vote to approve the consent agenda.
And the vote is open. And the motion passes, 6 yeas, 0 nays. On page 7, regular meeting agenda, 230496, adoption of the regular meeting agenda. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, we have amendments to today's regular meeting agenda. Items to be removed. First item on page 9, 230507. County manager requests approval of contract to provide communications and engagement services to ensure access to timely and factual information about the Fulton County Jail. On page 12, 230466, Human Resources Management. Presentation of the Fulton County's new mental health resiliency program. These items have been requested to be removed and heard at a later meeting. On page 12, item to be moved up as requested by Commissioner Thorne. 230467, discussion, open and transparent government. This item is to be heard before Commissioner Thorne's action item on page 10, 230512.
Okay. Commissioner Abdul Rahman.
Thank you, Chairman. On page 11, item 23-0513, I'd like to put that item on hold.
So noted.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the regular agenda as amended. Motion to approve, got Commissioner Thorne. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Abdul-Rahman. Please vote.
And the vote is open. And the motion passes, 5 yeas, 0 nays. 230497, ratification of minutes, recess meeting minutes, June 21st, regular meeting post-agenda minutes, July 12th, and special call meeting post-agenda minutes, July 12th, 2023.
All right, motion to approve by Commissioner Abdul-Rahman, seconded by Commissioner Thorne. Any questions or comments? Not? Let's vote, please.
And the vote is open. And the motion passes, 5 yeas, 0 nays. 230498, presentation of proclamations and certificates. Proclamation recognizing Family Food Fest Appreciation Day, sponsored by Commissioner Arrington.
Just one?
Just one, yes.
All right.
Good morning. It is wonderful to be able to present this proclamation in honor of the 9th Annual Family Food Fest. The proclamation reads as follows: whereas the 9th Annual Family Food Fest event is a Father's Day celebration presented by Atlanta Culinary Charities that has occurred for more than 20 years in Atlanta, honoring dads and men who serve as father figures and who give back to their communities and their families. And whereas Atlanta Culinary Charities is a 501c3 nonprofit organization and produces Family Food Fest Atlanta annually. The community partner for this year is the Frank Ski Kids Foundation, the same community partner more than 20 years ago. And whereas the Atlanta Culinary Charities has a mission of training at-risk youth in culinary and life skills and introducing young people to careers in culinary art and the art of caricature drawing, balloon design, and face painting. And whereas samples of various foods and dishes are offered to guests from well-known chefs, cooks, caterers, and restaurants with one all-you-can-eat admission ticket. In addition to the cuisine, family activities, live entertainment, chef demonstrations, and a health zone are all included in the schedule of events. And whereas the Fulton County Commission has supported this Father's Day celebration for many years, and among the honorary chairs has celebrated this celebration for many years, now therefore be it resolved that the Fulton County Board of Commissioners recognizes Family Food Fest for celebrating fathers in the Atlanta community and does hereby proclaim Sunday, June 18th, 2023 as Family Food Fest Appreciation Day in Fulton County. Thank you all so much. You got to tell us where Diane is.
Unfortunately, Diane cannot be with us today, but she is so appreciative of all the things that we've done and for the support of Fulton County, especially in receiving this proclamation today. We at Family Food Fest Atlanta are very proud of what we do in terms of recognizing men and fathers in the community and the impact they make on their families and their communities. We could not do it without the support of Fulton County and the commissioners here, especially those who serve as our honorary chair, such as Commissioner Marvin Arrington Jr. and Natalie Hall, who's been with us for years. Our team is here today. We have Andre Gates, we have Carla Belcher, we have Jimmy Littles, and we have Larry Fagan, along with myself, Kevin Ashford. I'm the spokesperson here on behalf of Diane Larche. And as a team, we are truly grateful for all the support that the public comes out and provides for us, because without you, we could not make this possible or support the missions that we do for our charitable organizations. I will say this, In addition to the public, we have sponsors who make this possible, and I want to acknowledge them. We have WSB Family to Family Project, Georgia Natural Gas, Amazon, the Black Greek Letter Consortium, Atlanta Hartsfield Jackson International Airport, AARP, to name so many that have come out to support us. And again, thank you very much for everything you've done. And we received this proudly, and we look forward to you coming out and supporting us in future years. Thank you very much.
All right, Madam Clerk, continue.
Continuing on page 7, public hearings, 230499, public comment. Citizens wishing to participate in public comment will be allowed to appear in person or may choose to participate virtually via Zoom conferencing or by submitting their comments in writing by registering on the county website, www.fultoncountyga.gov. Priority for public comment will be given to Fulton County citizens and those individuals representing businesses or organizations located within Fulton County. Speakers will be granted up to 2 minutes each. The public will not be allowed to yield or donate time to other speakers. The public comment portion of the meeting will not exceed 30 minutes. In the event the 30-minute time limit is reached prior to public comments being completed, public comment will be suspended and the business portion of the BOC meeting will commence. Public comment will resume at the end of the meeting. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, we will start with speakers here in Assembly Hall. We have received 7 speaker cards. Would the 7 speakers please come forward? Maria Guardio, Pamela Eckert, Mike Russell, Karen Dade, Brother Anthony Muhammad, Julie Allen, and Victoria Sylvia.
All right, speakers, when you have 15 seconds, I'll simply say 15 seconds, and that'll be your clue to begin to terminate your, not terminate, conclude your remarks.
Thank you. Maria Gaudio, Fulton County. I'd like to speak about the proposed property tax increase. And, you know, things have been very hard for a lot of people, especially in districts 5 and 6, although they did have some reprieve by very generous donation from Tyler Perry, who paid over 800 citizens' property taxes very generously. But I don't think we can count on that year after year. And I think that the people who live down there, no matter where they live in Fulton County, the way food prices have been, gas prices, and now for property taxes to go up, it's pretty well the final insult. Look at all the money that you're going to save with paper ballots. Those millions of dollars can be used in lieu of increasing property taxes. Thank you very much.
I'm Pamela Eckhart. I live in Roswell, Georgia. I'm here to speak about every decision that you make, every single one. The Lord looked down from heaven upon the children of men to see if there were any that did seek God. They are all together become filthy. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. Have all the workers of iniquity no knowledge, who eat up my people like bread and call not upon the Lord? There were they in great fear, for God is in the generation of the righteous. God sees everything. He sees every decision and he hears every word spoken, and he keeps records. One day, each person will stand before Almighty God and give an account. He knows every intent and thought of every heart. Every day, we and you have a chance to make right and good decisions for all people, even the weak and destitute. You have a chance, a decision to make. We are watching, but more important, God is watching, and your decisions will be recorded for a later time.
15 seconds,
Make
ma'am.
a decision you will be proud of on that day.
Good morning. My name is Mike Russell. I'm a resident of Atlanta, Grove Park neighborhood. I come today to speak out in opposition to the proposed increase in the millage rate. I find it incredible that now, in this economy, when we've just received news that we've had record evictions in this area, in this county, in this city, that you would even consider raising property taxes. I work with people every day who can just barely stay in their homes, and this will only increase the eviction rate in our city and our county. Now, a lot of you like to get up and pontificate and give out proclamations, and that's a good thing. But that doesn't keep the lights on. That doesn't pay the water bill. That doesn't pay the rent or the mortgage. And it doggone sure does not pay Fulton County property tax. Those proclamations are nice to have, but having shelter in a home is a must-have. And if you raise property taxes, it will 100% increase everyone's rent and mortgage. And that, to me, is unconscionable. We cannot afford a millage rate. Now, I've been all over the west side where I live, including last night when we had two communities meet together. And I've talked to people young and old, and nobody thinks this is a good idea, not one person. But they gave me a message to bring to you today, a very clear message in plain English. If you vote to increase our taxes, we're going to vote you out of office. If you vote to increase our taxes, we're going to vote you out of office. Now, I know some of you here don't believe that manure stinks, and I can show you a lot better than I can tell you. The folks in this county
15 seconds.
cannot afford an increase in their taxes, and you need to table this and come up with a different solution, like taxing commercial properties at the actual rate.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Karen Dade, and I'm a resident of Center Hill. And I am also here to oppose the property tax increase. I resonate with the gentleman that came before me. We just cannot, and I'm especially thinking of our seniors, for which I am one, that to increase in that way would put us in such a terrible situation. I'm asking that you come up with another plan. Please do not raise our property taxes. And that's all I have to say today. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Julie Allen, and I'm very thankful for each one of you, particularly Commissioner Barrett, that you serve our constituents here in District 3 so faithfully. Again, for briefness, I do like to read what I write. So I was here for the July 12th meeting where Commissioners Ellis and Arrington volleyed back and forth on the issue of raising the millage rate from the current 8.87 rate to as high as 10% that Commissioner Arrington suggested he would support. In that meeting, you approved advertising millage rate increase up to 9.2724 while approving a no-bid contract for $210,000 for a reparation study while not having sufficient funding to maintain the current millage rate. I want to thank Commissioners Hall, she's not here today, and Commissioner Pitts, Commissioner Thorne, and Ellis for the restraint that you showed in your votes going back and forth on those issues. I saw the compassion that you had for the people of the county in your measured votes. As we proceed today, I want to bring to your attention economic issues of concern to Fulton County constituents. The average price from the AJC, the average price of a gallon in Metro Atlanta midday Friday was $3.56, a stunning 34% climb in a month that included 20 cents per gallon rise in just the past week. And that is not the end of the escalation. 40% of U.S. adults have less than $1,000 in savings. 3 years ago, the average 30-year mortgage rate was 2.98% per Charlie Badello. The median existing home price in the U.S. was $294,000. Listen to this. This was 3 years ago. It was $294,000. Currently, the 30-year mortgage rate is 6.78%, and the median home price is $410,000.
15 seconds.
So keep in mind what's going to happen with this millage rate. You're already going to have an increase in revenue because we're having increasing home pricings and valuation. I'll come back in a few minutes and speak in the millage rate section to give you some more details to think about. Thank you for your consideration.
I am that I am. A niggas, kings of kings, dark matter, anti-matter, soul for spiritual, masculine energy. And I'm here today to say my condolences again, Mr. Marvin, love your father, and to you members of this commission. We need to recognize the mistreatment of the dark matter, anti-matter, brothers and sisters in the Fulton County Jail. It's unfair. It's unfair for Atlanta to have allowed us to have an opportunity to take that facility and use it to try to have a community work program, Ms. Keisha Bottom said, but never using Atlanta to hire some of your persons that you have control in Fulton County Jail. But you, the management, need to find the allocation of resources. Ms. D.A. Willis, concerned about Mr. Trump, you are taking my tax money over 350% since I bought the house in ENPUP. But why is I'm speaking about that? The majority of people in this city, as you know, Mr. Pitts, Mr. Marvin, and you, Ms. Khadijah, and all you other members of this commission, are dark matter people. They're suffering on the street. You see them by the hundreds, all over the metropolitan Atlanta area. Why is it that we can't love them like we say we love the God you say you represent? I'm no longer accepting religion. In your scripture, from Genesis to Revelation, not one person, not one human being was born from a woman womb canal in those allegories. But you are spiritual. And we are soulful and spiritual. So we are connecting back to the ancestor. The woman feminine energy is what this bow tie represents.
15 seconds.
And I want you to know we got to come back and recognize the woman, but she got to return to her duty as mama of the cosmos say, I got your back. And the daughter's supposed to represent the emotion, energy in motion. And we men are supposed to do what? Support her. Well, thank you. I didn't greet you. Assalamu alaikum.
Hello, my name is Victoria Salvia. I'm a citizen journalist, a blogger, a media content creator, and on the executive committee of the Libertarian Party of Georgia. I'm here to speak to oppose the proposed property tax increase. I see that on item number, 23-0502, it looks like you're looking to request an approval of a resolution of the Fulton County Board of Commissioners establishing a reserve account designated for the jail bridging plan and replacement jail construction costs using overruns above the $636.4 million expected to be generated from a 96% collection rate of current year property taxes. So what, okay, first of all, $636 million to go. I'm just wondering, why do you need even more money than that? So the implications, clarifications, we need to know. Where exactly is this property tax money going? Is it going to go for a building of another prison? Why do we need another prison? Are you expecting a bunch of criminals coming? This kind of coincides along with Cop City being built for $60 million. Are we going to have a surge of crime, or is this being built for the infrastructure of perhaps domestic terrorists, quote unquote, who go against the narrative going down the road? In addition to that, if you're going to, if this were to be unavoidable, that you're going to raise our property taxes, which of course it's avoidable, you're going to be voting on it, with an estimated 10,000 homeless per year being buried, including infants being abandoned per year, I think that there's better
15
uses.
seconds.
I think that there's better uses of our raised property taxes than to go towards another jail and another prison. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we have 5 speakers on Zoom and 2 emailed in comments.
Good morning, Commissioners. The first person to speak is Ben Howard.
Greetings, one and all. Ben Howard, Senior Advocate, Public Policy Analyst. As far back as February, at the Housing Authority of Fulton County, the assault on public comment began. The record on how he took over as chair is subject to scrutiny. Nonetheless, making full use of his power, he barked the order, shut down the chat. And not long later, he again barked, I thought I told you to shut down the chat. The Zoom chat was terminated. The next step in shuttering that authority from public view was to eliminate Zoom altogether. Residents and concerned citizens wishing to make public comment at meetings of the Housing Authority of Fulton County must now hit the highways and travel to 4273 Wendell Drive Southwest, zip code 30336. Oh, freedom of expression, wherefore art thou? Not at the Housing Authority of Fulton County, that's for sure. Stay tuned.
The next person to speak is Karika Wade. Karika Wade. The next person to speak is Colleen Freeman. Colleen Freeman. The next person to speak is George Freeman. George Freeman. And the last person is Shamika Crouch. No one's been.
Hi there. Hi.
Sorry,
Hi. I apologize. It's Shamika Crouch. Thanks, commissioners, but we have different questions and we recognize that this isn't the forum, the questions that we have. Thank you.
And that concludes the Zoom public comments.
The first email comment is from Kelvin Muldowney. Kelvin Muldowney, District 2 resident. I'm sure you will all agree that most of your constituents are facing tough economic times. Inflation is at a 40-year high. Housing for many has become unaffordable. Gasoline prices are again on the rise. This is hardly the time to raise the millage rate. Due to this inflation, the value of the tax digest value has increased handsomely. To put a millage increase on top of all of this would be an undue hardship for many Fulton residents. A glance of today's agenda reveals many requests requests that read, request for approval to increase spending authority. In these tough times, Fulton needs to become more efficient in delivering essential services. Commissioner Arrington, you said it yourself quite well in January of this year. We have more than enough money. That was the case then and is probably the case of reality now. Fulton needs to do what most of Americans do in tough economic times, cut back spending and become more efficient with what is coming in. The next comment is from Lee Wilder. I am wondering if the Fulton County Commissioners have the final say in tax breaks. The AJC reports that the Development Authority has given tentative approval to $11 million tax break for Ceramine. This is a community of rich folks developed by rich folks. The planned hotel and aging in place residents will only benefit rich folks. Please do not award tax breaks unless a broad range of citizens will benefit. This concludes the email comments.
No further speakers.
All right. Thank you very much. Continue, Madam Clerk.
On page 8, 230500, Finance, Fiscal Year 2023 General Fund Millage Rate Public Hearing. And we have received 2 speaker cards here.
2 speakers?
Yes.
All right. I'll open the public hearing on the 2023 General Fund millage rate at this time.
We have Brother Anthony Muhammad and Julie Allen. Please come down.
Let the record reflect there are 2 speakers.
Yes, my name is Anthony, Brother Anthony Muhammad, E-N-E, E with a high vowel sound. My mama would appreciate that. I want to make this perfectly clear that, as I said a moment ago, we have the majority of citizens in this city, members of that commission, and I noticed that the majority of members of you all, and I know they are good Caucasians, could support not to increase the millage rate. But now I want to say that again, because I watched the city of Atlanta. And the city of Atlanta had over 500 people that spoke for Cobb City not to be built. And most of them were young Caucasians. And I want to thank their families and thank them. Because I was met yesterday to make sure I signed up to get it on the vote. But I want to let you know, we the majority of people of the city, Mr. Pierce, and you members of the darker hue, why is it that we have to come down here and beg here in the 21st century? When you see your peoples on the street, you got this Carter G. Woodson during the 20s, 1920s, W. Du Bois. They both was under the Rockefeller Foundation. Rockefeller said, I'll pay you money as long as you don't tell them the truth, the miseducation of the Negro. And here in the 21st century, we're going through that again. You got Sorcerer, got Miss D.A., Miss Fannie Willis, the brother in New York, D.A. going at Mr. Trump. What has Mr. Trump got to do with us not having access to resources? Before he was a president, we didn't get nothing from the Democratic Party but a show. That's why Martin Luther King did what in 1968? Said, I may not get there with you, but I seen the mountaintop. But what he said in 1967.
15 seconds.
He said in 67, I'm going to get the check, y'all, because I found out that they have did us wrong. I may have been taking y'all in a burning house. So I said today, are we going to be in a burning house, Mr. Pierce, or are you going to do right by your people? I greet you again. Assalamu alaikum.
Julie Allen, thank you again for listening to these concerns. I'll try to be quick here reading these statistics. A recent report from the National Association of Realtors highlights the alarming state of the U.S. housing market, where more than 75% of homes available are beyond the reach of middle-class buyers. Elevated mortgage rates have exacerbated the problem, resulting in a shortage of around 320,000 homes priced at below $256,000, the maximum affordable price for a middle-income buyer earning up to $75,000. In April, out of the 1.1 million listings on the market, middle-income buyers could only afford approximately 23% of them. This is a substantial decline compared to 5 years ago, when around 50% of all listings were considered affordable for this group. This inventory shortage is projected to persist for several years, leading to a continuous rise in home prices and exacerbating the problem of unaffordability. According to data from Mortgage Bankers Association, housing has never been so unaffordable for Americans. 30% of workers making less than $50,000 are worried that AI will take their jobs, compared to 16% of those making over $150,000 per CNBC. The average American credit card balance is at a record $7,300. Meanwhile, the median household has just $5,300 in savings. Delinquency rates are up 6 straight quarters, on track for the longest streak since 2008. We are fighting inflation with credit cards. For the first time in history, total credit card debt is about to cross $1 trillion. Since Q4 2020, total credit card debt is up over $200 billion. Americans currently hold a record $986 billion in credit card debt. In many states, average credit card debt balances are nearing $10,000, which is by far a new record. Borrowing has become the new normal. According to a survey conducted in late 2022,
15
more
seconds.
Americans are carrying a balance than not. So I'll just summarize here and say, as prices of basic necessities rise, Americans are borrowing to offset the costs. I beg you, as you consider raising the millage rate, to recognize that rising home prices will yield additional revenues. I appeal to your conscience. Thank you.
No further speakers.
All right, anyone else in Assembly Hall here to speak on the 2023 General Fund millage rate? Anyone else? Anyone else? Come on down.
I just want to emphasize again how impactful this is on the people in the neighborhood where I live. When I go home today, I'm going to work with the lady to try to keep her in her apartment. Last week, I worked with a lady. Her Social Security income is $1,100 a month. Her rent is $605. No margin for error. And if you raise the millage rate, her rent's going to go up, and thousands like her, and she's potentially going to be on the street. We have record evictions, and you want to raise the millage rate, but you won't consider assessing commercial properties that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars and tax them the way you tax us. Why is that not on your agenda? This makes no sense. Absolutely does not. So I ask you again, go back, look at our budget, prioritize, and look at a different way to raise revenue, because people are going to be on the street. They are already on the street, and we cannot do this in Fulton County. You know, our legacy is also at stake. We're the home, the cradle of the nonviolent civil rights movement. Are we doing justice by the least among us by raising the property tax? I say not. But I am not here to threaten you that we're going to vote you out of office. I'm here to tell you that's going to be the reality, because we cannot afford this. We need good governance, and we expect for you to deliver it. So again, this is not a political issue. This is a people issue, and we need you to do better and come up with different solutions rather than those will result in people, families, children being on the street. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back the balance of my time.
All right, anyone else? Anyone else? All right, that will conclude the public hearing. Continue, Madam Clerk. Let the record reflect that there were three speakers for the public hearing.
Continuing on page 8, County Manager's items under Open and Responsible Government, 230501, Finance, request approval of August 2nd, 2023 budget soundings.
Madam CFO.
Mr. Chairman, we have one item on soundings. It's an addition to the annual hardware, software maintenance and support list for the Department of Real Estate and Asset Management. No funding is required. It's to increase the total authorized spending limit by $57,660.
Right,
This was
question.
to allow for repairs of some jail doors.
All right, any questions or comments? All right, motion to approve by Commissioner Abdul Rahman, seconded by Commissioner Ellis. Please vote.
And the motion passes, 6 yeas, 0 nays. 230502, request approval of resolution establishing a reserve account designated for the jail bridging plan and replacement jail construction costs using overruns above the $636.4 million expected to be generated from a 96% collection rate for current year property taxes and for other purposes.
All right, Vice Chair Ellis.
Chair, I'm in the queue not to necessarily speak about this particular item just yet, but we have another item on our agenda which I think probably bears discussion before we get into this, and that is your item that you have on the agenda, 230511. Which is approval resolution to approve the consensus decision at our special called meeting on July 12th. And so my request that would be we reconsider the agenda to take that item before this.
All right, any objections? You have properly moved and seconded. Any objections?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious why you feel this one needs to come first.
So we clear about what we want to do and, have a meaningful discussion. And the second one is this what we're looking to do? And the second, and the follow-on item, which is the one that was previously sounded, gets at, a potential means to finance it. So if we don't know what we're going to do, I don't know why we talk about how we're going to finance it. So if we don't have agreement on that, then I don't know why we're talking about how we're going to finance it.
All right, let's vote on this. You have a motion by Vice Chair Ellis, seconded by Commissioner Abdul-Rahman to take the other matter before this one. Let's vote on that, please, and move up the other item.
Okay, the vote is open to reconsider the agenda. And the motion passes, 4 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, you sound that item, please.
On page 10, 230511, request approval of resolution to approve the Board of Commissioners consensus decision at the July 12th special call meeting to direct the Fulton County Manager and county staff to proceed with planning and seeking funding for the design, construction, and ongoing maintenance of a replacement Fulton County jail.
All right, let me explain why this is before us. There seemed to have been, in some quarters, some confusion as to what was approved and not approved at that special meeting that we had. I was presiding, which I think I do very well. There was no confusion on my part about what the vote was. There were 5 of us present. There were 4 who indicated that they were in favor of it. I was not in favor of it and still not in favor of it. So it was a 4-to-1 vote. Commissioner Barrett asked that it wasn't clear to her. Ms. Corbett spoke up, it wasn't clear to her. The manager felt that there was some uncertainty. Mr. Adams felt that there was uncertainty. I don't know where that came from. I was presiding then as I am now. I knew exactly what was meant, what was done. The clerk came to me. Y'all had been, some of you, bombarding her about what was done and what was not done. I was crystal clear about what happened. However, in order to put that matter to rest, I agreed to put it on the agenda today so we can take another vote. And I can tell you who was there at the time. Commissioner Thorne was present. Commissioner Abdul-Rahman was present. Commissioner Barrett was present. I was present, and Commissioner Ellis was present. Commissioner Arrington was not present, and Commissioner Hall was not present at that time. The vote was 4 yeas and 1 nay. That's why this is before us today. All right, Commissioner Barrett.
There was no confusion on my part,
You brought it
Mr.
up
Chairman.
several times.
I did not bring it up several times. In one conversation, I asked Jessica in External Affairs to make sure that her wording was clear when she was expressing comments to the press, that we had not approved, air quotes, a $1.68 billion jail. And the reason I asked her to be careful in her word choice is that the implication of saying we approved a $1.68 billion jail is that we have had design plans, that we, have seen those, that we know exactly what's going to be built, what programs and services are going to be in the building, and that we have signed off on it and we're ready to break ground. That was my concern then, and that concern was borne out less than 12 hours ago when 2 news reports came out, and one of them basically said exactly that. So what I was a part of in that room was us, the 5 of us who were there, giving direction to the executive team to proceed with an further investigation on funding a potential $1.68 billion jail, and to look at the options for sales tax and the options for property tax and whatever other options we might have. But we did not actually approve a $1.68 billion jail. I also have no confusion about whether or not there was a vote. There was not a vote. We gave direction. If there was a vote, there would have been a motion and a second, and we would have asked for all in favor say aye, and none of that happened. So we did not have a vote. We gave direction. And this resolution to me is unnecessary, as it does not materially change what the executive team is doing. They took our direction, and they are moving down the path of doing that investigation on where funding may come from. So I'm very clear on what happened, and I said at the time when you and I had this discussion in the strategy office that I did not think it was necessary to bring this to the floor for a vote today, and I stand by that. I don't believe it's necessary. I want to be really clear. We have given direction for our team to investigate where funding might come from and how we might put that together to build a replacement jail, which is needed because the current facility is over 30 years old and is falling apart. That's where we are in this process. This does nothing but stir the pot. So the pot's been stirred.
Commissioner Arrington?
I stepped out to get some coffee. Was there a vote? How did we get to this item? As I was walking out, we were on item 0502.
Commissioner Vice Chair Ellis made a motion to amend the agenda to move this item up before.
And there was a vote?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm going to object, I guess, number one, to the wording of this language. The wording of the agenda item says the consensus decision at the July 12, 2023.
That's not my wording.
I don't know whose wording it is. All I know is I wasn't there. We just heard someone state that I wasn't there, Commissioner Hall wasn't there, and I just heard Commissioner Barrett objecting. So I don't necessarily know how we get to some type of consensus decision at a meeting on July 12th, or how we get to this language. So I'm in support of a replacement jail, absolutely. But I object to this wording as this is written.
Commissioner Abdul-Rahman?
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to correct for the record, that is Commissioner Barrett's recollection of what happened, because my recollection is different. There was a vote taken. There was no discussion after the vote was taken. And while we sitting up here playing politics, folks are dying in the jail. And so I take issue with my time. Now, everybody was not able to be there, and I understand that. But for those that were there, a conversation was made. The county manager and the executive team answered plenty of questions, okay? So I take issue with sitting in a meeting that was called, that I was there as well as my colleagues, and having a discussion and having a vote, and all of a sudden somebody's telling me I didn't vote when I know I did. Let's stop playing politics Folks are dying in that jail for whatever reason. We can debate that at another day. But when are we going to do what we need to do for our situation with the jail? Let's stop playing politics while folks are dying. Now, Chairman, I don't mean to go off, but this is ridiculous that people want to be on the news and they want to ping pong back and forth when they know good and well a vote was taken. We had an executive team there that answered plenty of questions. Questions were asked, money was shown, we can do this, we can do that, and I was crystal clear on the purpose of me and others being at that meeting. Now, all of a sudden, it didn't happen. It didn't go that way. Let's stop playing politics. I ask that we move on. We voted up or voted down, but meanwhile, while we sitting up playing politics, by the way, with taxpayers' money, people are dying. So I would just humbly ask that we stop doing that. We stop playing politics with folks' lives. We got an executive team, we got a county manager that I have full faith in, that when he sits in a meeting after the Board of Commissioners meeting, and your executive staff sits in that meeting after a Board of Commissioners meeting, that we do not waste their time. That is a slap in the face for us to have a meeting, vote, get all the information and all the questions, and now, oh, we didn't take a vote. Let's stop playing politics.
Commissioner Thorne?
I was under the assumption that we did take a vote. I guess it wasn't very formal. But I'm kind of confused because we were going back and forth between a $1.5 billion and a $2 billion expenditure. Personally, Eileen, I know we need a new jail, but I think the burden on the taxpayers is going to be horrific if we had gone with the $2 billion jail. And we were presented with a $1.68 billion at that meeting, which I'm hoping we can find ways to finance it without placing the burden solely on the property tax owners. So, but it appears that the number, you know, I've done rounding before. Now it's a 1.698, which is 1.7 billion as presented here. I don't know the difference from, I know it's not as, it's a significant amount of money that's changed, going from 1.68 to 1.7 billion. So I don't know how this exact number.
I don't think the number's changed. It may have been rounded up. The number is 1.68 billion. That's the number we've been using for the last 8 months. And so that's the number that we discussed at the session that we had. So it's 1.68. It may have been a...
But it says 1.698.
I didn't write the agenda item.
Okay.
I can just tell you what we talked about at the last meeting and what we have consistently presented as that particular scenario.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Barrett?
You know, I think it's real interesting when people who live in glass houses choose to throw stones. I'm recalling what happened in the meeting accurately. I will ask the question to the parliamentarian. Was a vote taken? Does not a vote require a motion, a second, and a call for votes?
It is my recollection, and the minutes of the proceedings that were taken by the clerk are also consistent with that, that there was an informal, I don't think it was a formal vote in the way that you do in these open meetings, but there was an informal discussion and polling, if you will, and therefore there was a clear consensus established that that was the direction the county manager's office was to take in pursuing and further researching the options that were discussed.
Right, and I don't disagree with that. Thank you, Madam County Attorney. I agree. We had a discussion, we came to a consensus, and we gave direction to the executive team. I stand by that consensus. I stand by the direction that was given. There was not a vote because we don't need a vote to give direction to the executive team. We often sit in this room and give direction to the executive team without taking a vote. So I stand by what I said. I stand by the wording that is in this very resolution, that there was a consensus and direction given. So to tell me that I'm not recollecting what happened in the room is just patently false. I recollect exactly what happened in the room. I don't think this is necessary because it is not necessary for us to have a resolution to give direction. My concern about this resolution was that it was going to send the wrong message to the public, which it has already done. I'm fine with moving on and having a vote yes or no, but that's the way this came out. I am 1,000,000% not playing politics. What I am trying to do is make sure that we are clearly messaging the public on what is happening.
Vice Chair Ellis.
Where to start? Just that whether that number is 1.698 or 1.685 or 1.5 or 2 billion, doesn't necessarily matter. It's such a big number and it's such a huge expenditure. We have got to get to a point of clarity about what it is that we intend to do. We've had feasibility studies. We've talked around this issue. Are we going to build this thing or not? I mean, I think we've had consensus about the need for it. We've had people come and talk to us about it. We understand the ramifications of the fact that we've got 3,600 people sitting in prison right now and we don't have adequate facilities to house them, right? Do I, as a taxpayer, want to fund a jail? Not really. But are we as a county obligated to have facilities? We're required by the state to do this, so we've got to figure out a way to do it? Yes. That's the oath we took. Tough decision. We got to figure out a way to make a decision around it. And are we going to build a facility or not? And if so, what's going to be the maximum price tag on it? And then B, how is it going to be funded? I will tell you right now, from this commissioner's perspective, I am not going to support any type of situation where the funding is going to come via the form of an increased millage rate. I've talked about this before, and I've raised some of these issues in the past. When we were talking about these things, I brought up the fact that we need to really seriously, aggressively look at, some form of sales tax to either provide for, offset of the funding that we're doing for healthcare right now to enable facilitation of payment for this. Do we need to go look at redirecting property taxes that are already being paid into TADS, that are Fulton County taxpayer money, for the funding of this? We need to look at spending reductions, or we need to talk to the state about getting additional funding in for other things that they are underfunding us for that we're doing right now. That's what I'm interested in doing. I think we need a new facility. I think it needs to be done. But I think we need to find a way to do it in a way that's going to hold our millage rate steady when we go through it. And those are going to involve significantly tough decisions. We got to stop just sort of talking around and dancing around and just make hard decisions around them. And if we're not prepared to make those hard decisions, and there are 4 of you that want to vote to increase the millage rate, that's how you're going to fund it, then go ahead. Let's go ahead and make that statement and do it, and then, let the public respond to it. This is not fun stuff. There's not necessarily, hey, when you were dreaming, hey, we're going to come down here and this is what I wanted to do when I ran for office, was decide about how I was going to fund a facility that really nobody's all that excited about, then, I get that. But that's our job. So I said during the meeting, I think in terms of a maximum size of the facility, this is probably about where it gets for me, 1.685. I was running raise 1.5 some time ago, but apparently not enough people really kind of like that as a concept. But again, I'll go on record again in terms of the funding for this. I'm not going to be supporting, an increased millage rate to be the source of funding for this. It needs to take place, and it needs to be funded by us aggressively looking at some combination of the factors that I just outlined. In addition to that, I'll say this. We've got to have accountability from our court system. It's ridiculous the amount of money that we have added in to funding the court system and to funding the justice system as a whole. Some of that has clearly been necessary, but the results aren't there. We've got, while we've added this additional funding in for what we thought were going to be a reduction in the jail population, a reduction in our court backlog, which we started to see last year, but we have seen significantly diminished results this year. And instead, we see things like this grand spectacle of a RICO trial where we've spent 7 months picking a jury, while the court system has been sat down and just slowed, while we got something like 472 murderers sitting in jail. And no telling how many others that are sitting out not in jail. While we've got additional funding that's provided to the sheriff, well, he's gone out and established other law enforcement units that aren't required, motorcycle units. I got a document the other day in the mail. It was a 30-page glossy 4-color document sent to me by another elected official in the court system, probably funded with Fulton County money. Damn it, I'm tired of funding additional funds into this justice system and seeing the results that we get. We got to walk and chew gum at the same time. We have to have a facility, it has to be adequate, and we have to have results from our court system, and we got to do the other stuff that we've got to do, and we got to do it cost effectively. I'm prepared to make all those tough decisions around it, and we need to have more aggressive decisions around other sources of revenue to do these things. And I'll mind, sales tax repositioning, TAD repositioning, these are all taxpayer money. Nobody holds total control of those things or should have total control or has ownership of those things or that they're barred for ever discussion about just because that they're in place right now. So I'm prepared to kind of move forward with this under the conditions that, kind of as I'm voting for it. This is what I'm intending to do to figure out a way to finance it. But we got to make a call and move on and then start really get serious about how we're planning this stuff out.
Commissioner Arrington?
I guess I'm a little curious, based on this discussion, as to who actually did draft this agenda item. How did we get from 1.68 to 1.698? Who determined that there was a consensus decision? Maybe it's just better if I make a friendly amendment to delete the language regarding the consensus decision at the special call meeting. I have no problem supporting this jail. The replacement jail. The jail is literally falling apart. Pieces of the building are being used as weapons. Commissioner Ellis is right. We need to look at sales tax for funding this and any and all other potential revenue sources. I don't want to just limit it to sales tax, but certainly we should use sales tax and try to limit as much as possible. I don't know that I tie the decision on the millage rate to this specific request. I look at those two items completely separately. But certainly, we should attempt to fund this and our efforts to provide equity in healthcare throughout the county through other alternative sources of financing. And so, despite the fact that no one has seconded this motion, for it to get my vote, I would need the language regarding the consensus decision at the special call meeting to be removed.
All right, anyone else? Anyone else? Mr. Thorne? No one else. All right, there is a motion to approve on the floor. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Ellis. Yes, Vice Chair Ellis.
I'll second the motion with the modification that the discussion was around a 1.685, that we clarify that was the number that we were discussing. Can you repeat the number that we discussed during the meeting?
I believe it was 1.685. I don't have the slide that we used at the time, Commissioner. I can go back and verify that.
Do you have record of that number? Okay, then 1.68.
Is that the one?
That was the number that was being discussed when we had request to reach a consensus decision.
1.68, that's correct. It's been
1.68.
That's correct.
Okay. So request that modification to the resolution.
All right, no objections to that. All right, Mr. Manager, Mr. Adams, y'all need to weigh in. I mean, it's...
I don't know if there's a specific question. I do want to point out, however, that this decision has been a bit more exacerbated by the Department of Justice. And it's my humble opinion that, and looking at where they have arrived at other investigations, that to the extent that we do not move forward with a jail, it is highly likely they will come forward with that recommendation when they finish their analysis, at which point in time it may be a year and a half down the road, and potentially $200 or $300 million more expensive. So in addition to the compelling need with the structure, and as Commissioner Arrington pointed out, the threat that it provides to our, not only our deputies, but the individuals who are in the jail, I do think there's a certain inevitability of this that we need to consider in light of the investigation and the note that we received 2 weeks ago.
I guess the only thing I would add is I think you're more in violent agreement than not. The whole process is meant to present options, keep narrowing the options, but keep moving forward. So if you think about where you have been, we've had a range of options from 1.5 to, when we did the refurbishment, costed that out, of 2.45. So there's almost $1 billion worth of difference between those in that range. And I think we all heard in the meeting a consensus around the 1.68. So we are proceeding along those lines. This can be helpful or not necessary, depending on how you perceive it today, to do or not do. I think getting the direction from you, which is what those sessions are meant to do, and give you ample time to really discuss, hear the underlying assumptions, and really, again, try to find consensus. I believe that we did that. In the interim, we have met with both folks that have some insight on sales taxes from another consulting firm or lobbying firm where it's being done over in Augusta. Some encouraging information coming out of that. We've also met with ACCG and gotten some, I think, good information from them. But again, that's again, a very challenging path to go down, but certainly one that's very worthwhile. We probably will come back with we're going to meet with our lobbyist team and I think come back with some recommendations on, do they feel like that they are the team to try to lead for all alternative revenue sources? I don't think that they will, so we may need some additional expertise in that. And of course, all of the work to begin the design and get it more finalized into a more final format continues on. But I do believe it's helpful to continue to narrow these options, which is what you have done. So independent of whether you take this vote, don't take this vote, approve it or not, we believe that you've given us enough direction, helpful direction, to continue along this path.
All right, Vice Chair Ellis.
No, I'll just say this. I mean, to that. I mean, if this is what we believe, put your vote behind it. I mean, we have all these discussions, and we have people up here, and they want to advocate for, a bunch of increased spending on one hand and frivolous stuff and put it on the agenda, seek to get it passed, and then on the other hand, they don't want to deal with what that entails in terms of the meaning for financing of it. So, and we've had too many discussions where you've heard the management team said, oh, we've heard consensus around stuff. Then you go down the path, and then people come back who were clearly, providing that consensus, and then feigning like ignorance about the subject. Here we are. Do we want to do it? If so, what's the max amount? Give them direction. Vote it up or down. I mean, enough of the sort of, you think you've got consensus. We need to tell you what we want to do and put our vote behind it.
Commissioner Abdul Rahman.
Thank you, Chairman. County manager and leadership team, from my understanding, what you're saying is the 1.685 is the one that we had the consensus around. That's the one that you all have been presenting. It is my understanding that at this point, the direction from this board, based on consensus vote informal that was taken at the retreat, that you all would go in that direction. Also, that you all would look for alternative funding, that you all would look and advocate for what was the best option. I just want to make sure that I, as a sitting commissioner, who will make some mistakes, have made some mistakes, but they are my mistakes to make. Because when you sit in this chair, you're not going to be all the way right, and you're not going to be all the way wrong. But if you're transparent and you're doing what's in the best interest of the tax-paying citizens, then you can sleep at night. So I want to make sure what I understood at the retreat of what I just said is the direction that you all are going in.
Yes, ma'am. And I don't disagree with what Vice Chair Ellis said. I think it would be helpful if all of you took a...
Oh, I agree with Vice Chair Ellis.
But we left with the direction that I explained.
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Commissioner Arrington.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I believe that I heard 2 requests for friendly amendments. I do not remember either request for friendly amendment being accepted. Commissioner Ellis's second was contingent upon 1.68, and Commissioner from District 6 just asked was the number 1.685, and staff said yes. So I don't believe that there currently is a second unless and until there has been an amendment, the friendly amendment was accepted. And prior to that friendly amendment was my friendly amendment.
Vice Chair.
Well, just so we can get on with this, I'll make a friendly amendment that hopefully the maker of the motion will accept, and that be the number instead of 1.698 would be replaced by 1.685 billion.
That's the third friendly amendment that has been proposed.
And accept but the first one that's been accepted.
I accepted it.
I don't know how you get to accept the third one until there's an acceptance or a denial of the first and the second.
Okay. As respects your amendment, Commissioner Arrington, I'll let you speak to that, but mine was made with withdrawal of the first.
I understand. My point was a point of order. There's an order and a chronology. And so before we can proceed to a third amendment, we have to know if the first and the second friendly amendments were accepted and or denied.
Madam Parliamentarian. Commissioner Arrington, while they were discussing, would you repeat what yours was?
My friendly amendment was to remove the language regarding the consensus decision at the July 12th, so that it would just read that we are approving the funding at the funding level. I don't have any idea why it would be necessary to state that there was a consensus decision at a previous meeting. I don't know how that affects anything. I don't think it's necessary.
My recollection is that Commissioner Arrington is correct in that his motion was made first, so if the board could take up that motion before considering the amendment that is currently on the board.
Friendly amendment
Excuse me,
to the motion, yes.
Do you accept that change?
What change? I'm sorry, we got so much going on.
My request for a friendly amendment was to remove the language regarding the consensus decision at the July 12, 2023 meeting, so that the item would read, request approval of a resolution to approve the county staff to proceed with planning and seeking financing for the design, construction, and ongoing maintenance of a replacement Fulton County jail. I don't know that I don't understand or have any reason why it would be necessary to say that there was a consensus decision at the July 23rd or July 12th meeting. I don't think it's necessary to vote on the amount of money to talk about something that was done. I wasn't present at that special call meeting.
Commissioner Arrington, out of fairness, and so we can move along, I was at the meeting. It was a consensus, but we need to move along, and so I will accept that.
Yeah, it was a vote. It wasn't consensus, so that's been accepted. So it was this will clarify all of that. It was a vote then, and this will clarify that once and for all. And the number is 1.685. That's what we're traveling with. Everybody's clear on this now. And anybody not clear, because I don't want you coming to me saying, I thought this, I thought that. Running to the clerk, running to Ms. Corbett. I'm presiding. Everybody's clear? Crystal clear. Let's vote on the motion as amended.
And the vote is open on the motion as amended. And the motion passes, 5 yeas, 1 nay.
Next item.
Back on page 8, 230502, Finance. Request approval of a resolution establishing a reserve account designated for the jail bridging plan and replacement jail construction costs.
All right, what's your pleasure? Have a motion to approve by Commissioner Abdul Rahman, seconded by Commissioner Barrett. Mr. Barrett, you have the floor.
I did go ahead and second this because I am essentially aligned with the spirit of it, but I do have a friendly amendment to make. And what I would like to do is add language everywhere this resolution says that we are establishing a reserve account designated for the jail bridging plan and replacement jail construction costs, to also add and programs or expenses approved by the board for the purpose of reducing the jail population. I made a comment, I think I've made it several times, but I absolutely made it in the session that we were just referring to, the special call session, that I was comfortable moving forward on a $1.68 billion jail if we made some continued efforts to address the reduction in jail population by looking at all the things that we've talked about many times, from programs that reduce recidivism to putting more towards diversion, I've been talking to some folks about the various ways we might do that. I've talked to the county management team about this. I'm not specifying a particular dollar amount or anything like that here, but I want to leave some space open whereby if the right program comes our way, that we agree as a board is going to help reduce the jail population, that we're able to use this reserve to pay for that. So I'd like to add that language, and I guess, do I address that to the friendly amendment request to you? Is that to you, Commissioner?
Yeah, it would be to
the mover.
Commissioner Abdul Rahman, who made the motion to approve.
I would just ask from the county manager, because we have been dealing with this a while, does that make any difference at all? Because at the end of the day, I want you all to be able to do what you all need to do. In lieu of, I don't want to do your job unless I'm going to get your check. So, county manager, if that's not a problem, I'm willing to accept it.
No, ma'am, I don't think that's a problem.
I'll accept it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, Vice Chair Ellis?
With that amendment, I'm not in favor of this. Look, we just voted to approve build a facility. It's going to cost a significant amount of money. We've got to start putting money aside to be able to fund it. Sooner we do it, the better. And so I'm not in favor of a millage rate. The increase is going to start this fund. I want to be clear on that. But I'm perfectly fine with, and I think we do need to start a reserve account that it will be used explicitly for funding of the facility. As for these other programs and all that stuff sounds nice and well. That's a separate issue. It should be dealt with separately. And in addition to that, we, as a board, prior to some of you coming on this board, have spent a lot of money, invested a lot of time in similar programs, had justice reinvestment councils, et cetera, with programs that have been brought through by the courts, and the results we have gotten have been less than stellar. All right, so if somebody wants to do that and put forth separately those individual programs and vote on them separately, then fine. But establishing a reserve account that's potentially going to serve as a slush fund for somebody's idea of the week, I ain't in support of. So if we want to reposition this to just be a facility building reserve, then I'm willing to listen to it. Anything else is going to be something that's going to be sort of slushed up, forget about it.
Point of order, what was the amendment?
I asked for a friendly amendment to add that this fund could be used for the jail bridging plan, the construction of a replacement jail, and programs that would specifically reduce jail population, as approved by us. I'm not saying a slush fund. I'm not saying any particular dollar amount. What I'm saying is, and Vice Chair Ellis, this is really directed also, sorry, I'm going to answer two questions at the same time, but this is really directed at, things you've brought up many times about the idea that we should not need a jail this size. So if we, ignore some things we could be doing to help reduce the jail population, I just want to leave the window open for some of those things to be done. And we are going to have to run a very tight ship, especially if you're not willing to raise the millage rate at all. And so, we need to be able to address some of these things, and that's why I'm asking for this. So,
Okay. Originally, Commissioner Abdul Rahman accepted your friendly amendment. Now she's advised me that based upon what Commissioner Ellis, Vice Chair Ellis has said, she does not accept it.
Can I speak to that, Chairman?
Yes.
One thing about sitting in this position, you do have to make the hard decisions when it comes to taxpayers' money. And being in year 3, and I have seen this happen. If I have not seen it happen, then I could sit and accept, the friendly amendment. So, Vice Chair, because I have seen this happen, I'm going to have to withdraw my acceptance of that friendly amendment because I think we're at the point where the rubber has to hit the road, and we need to be specific about that money and how it's going to be spent. And if there's any changes, then the county manager and his team, if they deem that there's a change, that they will bring it back forth to us for a vote. But I think it's too broad. That's what I'm getting from you, Vice Chair, in that what could happen, money could be spent and diverted to other things. And I don't want to see that happen. I'm just going to be crystal candid and clear. We have an issue with the jail. We need to be specific about what are we going to do with the issue with the jail. We are under DOJ right now. And so everything we do, we have to do it with the intentionality of making sure that we move in a spirit of doing what's right, but also protecting the Fulton County taxpayers' coffers. So, and here again, Commissioner Barrett, I want you to understand crystal clear where I'm coming from on this. I support, in theory, what you're trying to do, but I don't think it belongs right here in this part.
All right, Commissioner Thorne.
Vice Chair Ellis and Commissioner Abdurrahman, I agree with both your stances. I believe programming, if there was programming that was effective, that we knew, and we would find money somewhere for that, but it doesn't need to be taken out of this. We have to start saving money for a huge capital expenditure that's going to burden the entire county in a very tough economic times. So I might want to offer an amendment, like, why are we capping it at 40 million? If we find other money, can we put additional funds in there, or is there a way of not capping it?
Commissioner Thorne, the intent was to capture specifically the estimated amount of property taxes that we would potentially receive over the amount that we have in the budget. So that amount was estimated to be 40 million. But it was targeting just the property tax piece.
From the
Yes,
tax
ma'am.
digest. But if we could have further resolutions, if we have extra money, to go ahead and put it
Yes.
in that fund, to make
Yes.
additions to that fund.
Yes.
Okay.
And Commissioner, if I may just add something to what the CFO just mentioned, I want you all to know that this will be within the 96% collection rate, because that is what we use to prepare the budget. Anything above that is going to be part of what we use to balance the budget in the following year.
So if we collect 99%,
96% is
yeah,
it?
we're projecting 96%, but if we do an additional 99%, can we add that money into this reserve fund?
No, we can't, because we use that as a prior year taxes to balance the budget in the following year.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Abdurrahman.
I've already spoken, Chairman.
Commissioner Barrett.
Commissioner Thorne, I had the same comment you did on the up to 40 million. It seems to me that language should just be removed. So I would request a friendly amendment again to take that out and just have any dollar amount above the balanced budget amount of 636 million and change, or whatever it is, would go to this reserve fund. It does seem odd to have a cap. What if it ends up being 40 million and $100,000 or whatever? Like, why wouldn't we just put it all in there? So.
Here again, from my perspective, I think we have to be careful. I think with this, as sitting commissioners, if we want to come back and give a direction to the county manager and the executive staff, I think at this point in juncture for me, I would be very deliberate in what this says. And so I would have a concern with that being like that, considering what we're dealing with. And so here again, with all due respect, Commissioner Barrett and Commissioner Thorne, I would prefer to leave it like it is and to move forward. And if we deem that it needs to be changed or additional resolution among meeting with the county manager and the executive team, that we can come back and do that. But I think now, based on what I feel is appropriate with what we're dealing with, I don't want, and I'm not saying it is, let me be crystal clear, I'm not saying it is a slush fund, I'm not saying any of those things. But what I'm saying is, considering what we're dealing with, I want it to be pinpoint to what it should be used for and the needs of it.
Okay, so I still thank you for responding to my request. With all due respect, the point of this resolution is to make sure this money is used specifically to address this issue that we're having in our justice system, with the need to address the issues we have at the jail currently until we are able to have a replacement jail up and running and in place. And the cap on the dollar amount just allows for some additional overage. Look, the other intention is, if we raise the millage rate such that there is an overage, that overage go to this reserve. So it seems to me that the entire overage should go to this reserve. You've already rejected my request to include programs that might help reduce jail population. The request to remove the $40 million cap is just saying whatever money comes in over the balanced budget amount, the balanced budget revenue amount, I guess, goes into this reserve fund. I'm not asking for money to be spent on anything other than what this, I already asked and was denied, that the money be spent on anything else than the facilities things that are listed here. So I don't see how that's anything other than common sense.
Vice Chair Ellis.
Well, I think we clearly need a facility reserve. I think there's some potential confusion about what the triggers are going to be for the revenues, to where the revenues are going to be generated, how they relate to millage rates, budget, et cetera, and flow through, as well as how other future designated amounts could be placed into this facility reserve. I guess if I narrowly read the intent of this, almost appeared that it was very narrowly constructed to be that in the event of approval of any sort of millage rate increase, any funds between the differential of the existing millage rate in the future would go purely to this facility reserve. Is that as narrowly, is this more the way this is narrowly written right now?
Yes, it was constructed to assure that that the funds over the amount of property tax revenue in the budget would go into the reserve based on the
Could be, I guess, a millage rate or a change in collection rate.
We premised it all off of the typical collection rate, which is about 96%. So yes, it could fluctuate depending on what the actual millage rate is and what the actual collection rate is. It could be more or less than the current amount that's projected, which is $40 million.
Well, we're not voting on the millage rate today, and I'm clearly, as I stated, I'm not in favor of an increased millage rate regardless, but I think we do need to have a facility reserve that we need to begin funding, whether that's through clear explicitness within our budgets, through offset funding, whatever it is. I think we need to have it established. I might recommend that we hold this now, in that you tailor this to address sort of the multiple concerns that we've all sort of brought forth, and really have a true fund that can be established, and we can start to place funds in through a direct budgetary allocation and or other measures. I'm a little bit confused. I'm a little bit concerned right now about unintended, consequences of this, or just, interpretation of this, at our level, we're us not being on the same page. So,
Is that a substitute motion to hold?
yes, sir.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, substitute motion to hold by Vice Chair Ellis, seconded by Commissioner Arrington. Any discussions on the motion to hold, substitute motion to hold? Not, let's vote on the motion to hold. Madam Clerk?
And the vote is open on the motion to hold. And the motion passes, 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Next item.
230503, registration elections. Request approval to increase spending authority in an amount not to exceed $232,758.44 for temporary staffing services and reimbursement for the rental of box trucks.
Mr. Chair, point of order. Can we hear these next 4 items together? Election items.
Preside, just for a second. Is there any objection to hearing these next 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 items together?
I would object.
Okay.
I don't mind hearing
Okay.
3 of them, but 504, I would like to
Okay.
individually vet.
Can we just, sounds like these will move forward fairly quickly. You okay with just hearing them separately? Okay. Proceed, Madam Clerk.
Okay, so we're on 230503.
Yes.
Request approval to increase spending authority in an amount not to exceed $232,758.44 for temporary staffing services and reimbursement for the rental of box trucks.
Okay, we got a motion and a second on the floor. Commissioner Arrington, you previously in the queue, all right. So Commissioner Thorne, you wish to be heard on this item?
Oh, I just had a quick question. We approved temporary staffing, but how was this overlooked in the original presentation? That the rental of the box trucks wasn't included? Oh, there you are.
Good morning. It was not overlooked. It's to reimburse the temp agency for covering the box truck costs. They ran it for us to add supplemental liability coverage, so we have to reimburse them for that cost.
So when we approve the contract with that, they didn't include that cost? They just tell us that, we'll come back with that cost at a later date?
No, it wasn't originally the cost for the trucks was in the soundings, but not for the rental company to cover the cost.
Okay. Thank
I
you.
mean, not for the temp agency to cover the cost, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, let's vote.
And the vote is open. And the motion passes, 5 yeas, 0 nays. 230504, request approval of a statewide contract in a total amount not to exceed $4,067,760.01 to provide temporary staffing services for the November 2023 municipal and December 2023 runoff elections.
Commissioner Thorne, you have the floor.
Yes. Ms. Williams, I'm never for temporary staffing in our elections for things like handling ballots, tabulating ballots, accepting, rejecting ballots, logic and accuracy testing, handling of the voting equipment, all of those, just due to firsthand experience of doing that myself, and also not getting hired from Happy Faces, which, thank you for, I understand in that Happy Faces did put forth a bid for this, so thank you for not approving them. It was under the name of Snelling, Snelling is now Happy Faces. It's still run by Michael Hairston.
We did not exclude the company. We went with the lowest bidder by county
Yes,
policy.
yes, I'm glad. I mean, I just look at developing trust in our elections as something that we really need right now. I'm not familiar with the Bacchus staffing. They're new. We've never used them in our elections before. How are these people, how is the Bacchus, where are they going to get, are we going to tell people to apply at a Bacchus to get hired, or how is that going to work?
Yes, so once the contract is approved, I mean, this request is approved, we will put postings on the website, and it will link to the temp agency for them to apply.
So one thing I would like to request, you mentioned that Abacus was going to be doing the logic and accuracy testing. As a poll manager, my experience of working and doing the logic and accuracy testing was so beneficial for me in running my precinct and being able to troubleshoot my equipment, being able to see how my precinct is set up. I could notice when things were delivered what I didn't have so that I could call you guys right away the day before instead of realizing it on election day I was missing X, Y, and Z. So I would encourage, highly, highly encourage that all people who are hired to do logic and accuracy testing are potentially election day workers who aren't doing early voting, or early voting workers prior to early voting logic and accuracy testing.
We'll take that into consideration. Thank you.
That would be great. Also, I had lunch yesterday with somebody from Gwinnett's Board of Registration Elections. They don't seem to use a staffing. They have temporary staff that they hire directly. They don't seem to use a staffing agency like we do. I don't know how Gwinnett is getting around that. I was hoping we can maybe look into that, seeing as the state auditor's report told us that we rely too heavily on temporary staffing agencies. Also, as a cost-saving benefit, we're paying, what, 30 to 40% above the pay that's going to the company. On this contract alone, we could save $1.33 million if we could figure out that piece, and I think it would drive our elections cost down.
It was a recommendation of this board that we diversify with staffing. So we go with the temp agencies as well as HR to staff positions, but it is more cost effective for us, as large of a county as we are, to use the temp agencies for the amount of temps that we have.
So Gwinnett is similar in size. They're 900 and some thousand. They're encroaching on the same size as Fulton County, but we're still the biggest. But they are using a model that's different than our model, and I think it would be worth looking into if we could for future elections.
Okay, I'll reach out to Gwinnett and inquire. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kill that bug over there. All right. Any other questions or comments on this matter? All right. Vote's open.
And the vote is open. And the motion passes, 4 yeas, 0 nays. 230505, request approval of a statewide contract in the amount of $324,211.59 for the rental of box trucks, passenger vehicles, cargo vans to be used for the November 23rd municipal election and December 2023 municipal runoff elections.
All right. Let's open the vote. There's no comments.
And the vote is open. And the motion passes, 5 yeas, 0 nays. 230506, request approval of a statewide contract in an amount not to exceed $658,907.21 to provide inbound and outbound mailing system.
Any questions, comments? Seeing none, let's vote.
And the vote is open. And the motion passes, 5 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you.
On page 9, under Health and Human Services, 230508, Community Development, requests approval of a contract with Fulton County Schools in the amount of $250,000 to support the Community School Initiative.
We got in the queue myself and then Commissioner Thorne and then Commissioner Abdul-Rahman. I'm not in support of this, and actually I'm going to offer up a substitute motion to file this and deny it. I think, this program is a good one, but it's a Fulton County Schools program. I think Fulton County Schools should be funding it. I don't think we should be mixing or commingling our funding with them, particularly given sort of just the discussion that we were just having about the specific needs that we have. I guess if we want to offer up participations from other governments for them to contribute to funding for jail facilities and other the like, then I think that's a great thing we should all consider, but I think we all have our specific roles. And I think, for funding purposes for school matters, the schools should fund theirs and we should fund ours. So I'm going to offer up a motion to deny. Commissioner Thorne?
Yes, I agree, and I'm going to second that motion. I spoke with a school board member, Fulton County Schools. They have over a $2 billion budget, and they have a declining population. And so they are just going to do some refurbishing of buildings. They're not going to build anymore. I think Atlanta Public Schools also has $250,000. That's going to be coming before us, too. They have a $1.6 billion budget. We have an $865 million budget. We should be asking them for money instead of us giving them money. So I'm going to second this motion. I think it's time we're going to have to make some hard decisions. But I do have to say, this program at Banneker, Tri-Cities, and North Springs is a great program. I visited the ribbon cutting at North Springs back in February or March. It's an incredible program, so it's nothing against the program. What they're doing to provide services for students in need to help them stay in school. They had everything from washers and dryers to fresh food to frozen food. They had counseling services provided. It's the Links program in North Spring. It is a very, very good program. I fully support the program. I just believe the schools need to fund the program with their budget that's more than double our size.
Commissioner Abdul-Rahman?
Thank you, Vice Chair. I need for the county manager, or maybe more or less Dr. Rochelle, if we don't do this, the reason why I'm very familiar with the safe centers in South Fulton, and having toured it, having talked to the parents, having talked to those individuals over there who, in my opinion, if we don't have it, it could have detrimental effects. And so I just want to make sure that we're talking about the same program. And if we don't do it, because the program that I saw and I toured, and I was actually over there when they did the ribbon cutting, it allowed students to be able to wash clothes. It allowed students to come in and get food to take home. It even allowed, staff, to come in with certain needs. And I'm torn, Vice Chair, I hear what you're saying, but I'm torn in that if we don't do it, are we exacerbating or taking a problem that is prevalent in our schools and is a barrier to learning? So I just need you to weigh in on it, please.
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Abdul-Rahman. The SAFE centers are already in existence, and so they are funded through APS, or in this case, Fulton County Schools as it currently exists. This additional funding, of course, will allow that program to expand its services, but it is a funded program.
And let me ask you this, from your experience, how has it helped, how has it served in removing the barriers of learning?
So the SAFE centers do provide supplemental support. So when we think about what barriers to learning can be, it often is not necessarily connected to the lack of attending school or not having resources for class. It's often related to the home environment and lack of access to other things that just make the quality of life better. And so recognizing that, the school system has put this center in place to address all of those other non-educational needs that can have a negative impact on education. And so that is the purpose of the centers. They do definitely provide in the schools and communities listed in our contract that additional support to ensure that the children and families have that extra support that they need so that they can be more effective for themselves in the classroom setting.
Yeah, I haven't seen it myself, haven't seen it myself. Even a couple of the students who had an opportunity to tell me that they received, supplemental support, it would be so hard for me to pull funding from this. I'm thinking about one of the students who told me that they were living with their grandparent, and the grandparent, for whatever reason, hadn't received their Social Security check. But the grandparent really wasn't able to navigate to be able to get food in the house. And they brought the food home. I mean, this was a 10th grader. So I really think that we need to have this. Having seen the critical need and seeing how in Commissioner Arrington, now Commissioner Arrington's district, used to be my district, and just seeing how the need is there and it's not enough funding, I would hope we would support it. Thank you, Dr. Rochelle.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Arrington?
I got a few questions. I think the first question that I have was, when did we receive this request?
So Commissioner Arrington, the funding for this particular program was approved as a part of the January budget process. And so once that funding was approved, the department then needed to contact the school system to figure out what kind of program would be most impactful to be supported. So there was not a request, it was approved by the board. Well, yes, there was no proactive request from the school system, it was just approved by the board, and then we reached out to determine how we could be helpful.
So you're stating that this was a item that was specifically or individually added to the budget request?
Yes, sir.
So I was ready to support the denial of this, but that's why I asked when did we approve this? And so, given our current financial constraints, I think everything Commissioner Ellis said is spot on. However, I think it puts us in a bad light if we voted to add this to the budget, contacted the people, told them that we added this to the budget, and they have now included that in their plans, right? You know, like, if this was a request that came in last week and they said, oh, we need 250, then I would say, hey, we're out of it. But for me to hear that this is something that we initiated and we went to them, that I don't like doing business like that. Once you tell someone that you budgeted for them, then I think you got to follow through with that. And maybe to Commissioner Ellis's point, you know, maybe we're in such dire straits that maybe we have to recant what we've done, but I think that's just bad dealing. I think if we sent staff out to tell them that we had this money, they planned on us having the money and have been, that's just, you know, I don't like doing business like that. And I understand, you know, it may be difficult, right? We got a lot of moving pieces and a lot of moving parts. But I was ready to support, to deny it, but after hearing the source and how this transpired, I have to continue to support it.
Commissioner Rockman?
I want to make a motion to hold this. Is it time sensitive?
It is not.
Yeah, I want to make a motion to hold this so I can get additional information. Yeah, I need more information.
All right, motion, is there a second to the motion to hold? All right, seconded by Commissioner Arrington. Let's vote on the motion to hold.
And the vote is open on the motion to hold. And the motion passes, 5 yeas, 0 nays. 230509, request approval to rescind prior 2023 Community Service Program Award to the nonprofit Helping Empowered Youth in the amount of $25,000 and request approval to reallocate the rescinded funding to the nonprofit Generation in Focus Foundation.
All right, motion to approve by Commissioner Barrett, seconded by Commissioner Thorne. Commissioner Arrington?
Yes, can we have someone speak on this for the record, for the public?
Yes, sir. So the purpose for this request is due to the fact that the organization was funded through the Summer Youth Job Training Program. So they elected to be funded through that source rather than through CSP. So that's how we arrived at this request for the rescission. I will add that we have come to the board with several of these types of requests this year, and the solution moving forward is that we will have one RFP for 2024 that includes summer youth, CSP, veterans, and the youth homelessness program. This will help alleviate organizations being funded and then rescinded in order to accept funding from another Fulton County source. So we will provide some specific details regarding how all of these programs will be coordinated together so that when one RFP goes out to the community, organizations will then be able to determine which funding source or category best meets their needs, and it will eliminate this process of coming to the board with rescissions.
Thank you. And how was the new organization selected?
So the new organization was next in line based on their score. So as you may know, each year, while the funding is generous, we always have organizations that met the criteria, but we exhausted our funding. They were next in line based on their score.
Thank you.
All right, motion on the floor is to approve. Any further discussion? If not, let's vote, please.
And the vote is open. And the motion passes, 5 yeas, 0 nays. Commissioners' action items, 230383, Request approval of an ordinance to amend the Fulton County Code of Ordinances in order to impose a distribution requirement before a member of the Fulton County Board of Commissioners may place a proposed resolution or ordinance on the agenda for consideration or final vote, to require the proposed resolution or ordinance appear as a discussion item at the first meeting in which it is introduced and voted on the second meeting and for other purposes. Sponsored by Commissioner Arrington.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to hold these two items one more time, given the current situation and I was out of office or
Okay.
out of.
No objection, we'll hold both. Continue, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
On page 10, 230510, request approval of a resolution to rescind a motion previously passed by the Board of Commissioners to refrain from taking any action regarding the composition of the Board of Ethics until matters are no longer pending before the Board of Ethics and for other purposes. Sponsored by Chairman Pitts.
Okay, quickly, you'll recall that several months ago, we took an action not to approve any additional nominations to the Board of Ethics until the matter was reserved, but it's come to my attention and the attention of others that they're having trouble with a quorum, and there are several nominations pending. So this then will undo what we did before and allow us to again vote on nominations by the various organizations to the Board of Ethics. Motion to approve by Commissioner Thorne, seconded by Commissioner Abdul-Rahman. Commissioner Arrington.
Yes, there is no way on God's earth that I can support this. They have violated their own rules. They have violated the ethics rules themselves. I have filed a complaint against the members individually. Not only have they violated their own rules, they don't give notice properly. There are just a list or a myriad of items that they have done. They need to resign. They need to resign. They have a conflict that is incurable. There is no way for them to resolve the conflict. They need to resign. None of the reasons that we voted for, when we voted for this to not take action on them, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed since that time. They still did all of the same things that they did wrong. All of them. In fact, they've done more. They've doubled and tripled down on the number of things that they've done wrong since that time. They need to resign.
Commissioner Barrett.
Just a couple questions, Mr. Chairman. And this is just because I'm not as read in on all of the issues on this as everybody else, I guess, just in that I wasn't here for a lot of it. But just for my own understanding, there's how many people sit on the Board of Ethics?
I think there is it 9 or 7.
I believe it's 7, but we have to confirm.
And there is enough active members currently to have a quorum, yes?
Well, depends on who you talk to. If I recall correctly, their rules and regulations provide for current members to continue to serve until such time as a replacement has been approved by this board.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not happening. So the several of the people who are in place now are not attending meetings because they know that they're not going to be reappointed, and there are organizations that have made nominations, but because of the legislation that we approve, we can't approve them. Gate City Bar Association has a person. North Fulton Chamber has a person. Then we made a change a couple of meetings ago. Our former personnel board had a representative, but when we did away with the personnel board, we substituted that person for a person to be nominated by the South Fulton Chamber of Commerce, and that person is waiting to be approved.
I don't remember the details on all of those renominations, but I feel like at least...
They're being held.
Yeah, that I remember, but I feel like at least 1 or 2 of them was a renomination of the same person. Was that true?
The president. Yes, ma'am. The president, the chair, the one responsible, and they must be held accountable for all of the errors And up next, I'm going to ask the county attorney to list all the errors. That's what I'm going to do after you finish.
Commissioner Arrington, what was the nominating group for that person? Do you recall?
The Gate City Bar Association.
Okay. I mean, Mr. Chairman, I don't have a dog in this fight, as you like to often use that term. I really don't have a dog in this fight, but I feel like.
Well, you do, because you have a vote.
Well, sure. I'm just paraphrasing you, my friend. But I feel like, you know, my logic here is that I'm perfectly okay with the new nomination of the group that we put in place of the Personnel Board, as an example. But you know, I think maybe the renomination of the same people seems unnecessary. So I don't know, you know, if they're still sitting there and they're still in there anyway, I don't think they necessarily need to have another term while these things are open, if that makes sense. So if there's someone who's literally not attending, and if we could maybe get that in writing, that this person is no longer, they've given up the seat, they're not there, they're not attending, I would be okay with putting someone new in one of those seats and letting these nominating bodies put someone new in. But I think this is a broad resolution that just says we can just begin to approve those things again. I guess I could, you know, vote no on them one by one. But I'm just trying to get some clarity here, because it does sort of seem to me like nothing's really changed. So we sort of made this decision before when, you know, nothing had changed, and, you know, it seems sort of still the same to me. So I'm not quite sure where I sit on this.
Well, it's complicated, and I don't want to get into too much discussion about it, but I'll defer to Commissioner Arrington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam County Attorney, can you please provide a list of all of the different violations that the Ethics Board has done for the benefit of the public?
So without getting to all of the details of the pending matters, generally speaking, we have observed procedural irregularities in the actions of the Board of Ethics, to include their notice procedures for the proceedings that are before them, hearings that are not, the notices are not being given to the parties, the copies of the orders that are issued are not making it to the parties timely, in matters that are still pending after a prolonged period of time, initiating suit, and actually initiating a lawsuit against a party in a matter pending before the board. Those are just some of the categories that we have observed.
So let me repeat those again for the benefit of the public. Failure to provide adequate notice. Failure to provide documents and orders to the parties. Filing of a lawsuit. Fulton County departments and Fulton County boards do not have the authority. Imagine if the finance department went out and sued you, Mr. Chair, or you, Vice Chair Ellis. They don't have the authority to file a lawsuit. And they think that they do, and they think they should be reappointed? Not in a million years. Not in a million years. Due process of law. Notice of a proceeding is a fundamental right. You can't have a proceeding and not provide proper notice. That deprives someone of due process of law. It's a violation of the Constitution. You can't issue an order and not provide a copy of the order to the party. That is a further violation of due process. And to think that you have the authority to file a lawsuit, and when you are instructed that you do not have the authority to file a lawsuit, you continue? What are they doing? What are they doing? If they won't resign, they need to be removed. I'm gonna make a substitute motion to remove all of their asses today. Today, all their asses need to go.
All All right, substitute motion to remove all members of the Board of Ethics. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Violating the Constitution.
Is there
They're
a second?
violating their own ethical rules. They are in violation of the Fulton County Ethics Code themselves.
All right, motion fails for lack of a second. Vice Chair Ellis?
I'll come in a little bit late to the party on this one. But a couple of things. Number one, we need a properly functioning Board of Ethics, right? And I think we're probably all in agreement upon that. I'm concerned about, and I think this is the last area where we need, dysfunction between the Board of Ethics and the Board of Commissioners. They need to be able to operate independently, but they also need to do it within the context of, what they're structured and designed to do. I think the county attorney has outlined several situations where they're not doing that. Have we communicated that specifically to them?
I have had conversations with the board's attorney.
Okay. But we've not gotten a response. I would just sort of posit maybe a different approach, that maybe we could specifically have a letter that's crafted, go out under the pen of directly from the Board of Commissioners, stating, kind of the things that we need a response to, and about how they intend to rectify and address those situations or violations which have occurred. And then once we get that response, then we can figure out a way to move forward with this. We got enough issues going on. This is sort of an unnecessary thing for us to be in some sort of frictional kind of debate about. It should be pretty straightforward. Let's talk about, you share with them kind of like what you found and get a written response from them about how they intend to address it and get back into a proper state, whatever that means, whether that's, let's just see what their response is, and then we can evaluate how we go forward from that point in time. Because it needs to be stood up. They need to be able to hear existing matters. People need to be able to bring it forward. We need, should be an essential sort of function that we have that's in place and that works. So I want that to occur. I don't know whether the rest of the board kind of, is in support of that approach. But also I'm trying to understand what exactly this particular motion that is before us is going to allow or not allow. Because I guess as I understand it, they have the ability to continue to meet and hear things. They have a quorum.
They do, and I did confirm that it's a
Right.
7-member board.
So it doesn't, us doing nothing or not doing anything doesn't prevent them from acting in this present form right now. It would just allow for us to just start putting more members on here, but while we still have not gotten a response to our original concerns, which we expressed when we took this action some time ago, correct?
Correct.
So we've got a board which members are appointed to, required to do certain things. We've identified things where they've been in violation. You've shared with their attorney about where they're in violation, but yet we've not gotten any response from them about how they intend to rectify and address that. So if they want us to rescind this, then get us a response. It's not that hard.
So are you offering a substitute motion to hold and pending the county attorney submitting those concerns to?
You want to put words in my mouth? Yes.
Okay. So is there a second for that? Second. All right, properly moved and seconded to hold and directing the county attorney to submit those concerns, and we need to have that by our next meeting. Commissioner Aaron, you want to still be heard?
Absolutely. Madam County Attorney, do the members of the board have an irreconcilable conflict of interest based upon me filing an ethics complaint against them for their violations of the ethics code?
It does appear to be a conflict without resolution under the current rules.
a conflict without resolution. It appears to the county attorney that there is a conflict without the ability to be reconciled. The only way for them to reconcile it is for them to resign or for us to remove them.
All right. The motion on the floor is to hold. Any other comments on the motion to hold? Commissioner Abdul-Rahman? All right, let's vote then on the motion to hold.
And the vote is open on the motion to hold. And the motion passes, 5 yeas, 0 nays. 6
What?
with Vice Chair Ellis.
All right, next item.
Next item was the item that moved up.
I'm going to hold both of my items today.
What?
I'm going to hold both my items today.
Okay, where are you now?
So I'm going to hold 230467 along with 230512.
All right, no objections. We'll hold those two, sponsored by Commissioner Thorne. All right, Madam Clerk.
Page 11, full board appointments, 230514, Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, Regional Advisory Council. Vice Chair Ellis has nominated Dave Eck for a full board reappointment to a term ending August 1st, 2026.
All right, motion to approve by Commissioner Thorne, seconded by Commissioner Abdul-Rahman. Please vote.
And the vote is open.
0514, bottom of page 11.
And the motion passes, 6 yeas, 0 nays. On page 12, 230515, Region 3 EMS Council, Commissioner Thorne has nominated Chris Coons for a full board reappointment to a term ending June 30th, 2026.
All right, motion to approve by Commissioner Thorne, seconded by Commissioner Abdul-Rahman. Please vote.
And the vote is open. And the motion passes, 6 yeas, 0 nays. Don't have any further items on the agenda.
What, 0466, what's,
That one was removed.
it was?
Yes, at the beginning of the meeting.
Why was that removed?
They said the vendor was unable to attend the meeting today.
What?
The vendor was not able to attend.
What does the vendor got to do with it? What's the
Mr. Chairman, the individual who was going to be making the presentation was not able to attend today, so we removed the item.
All right.
Which item was removed?
On page 12, 230466.
All right, anything else at this time? All right, it's 12:18. I'll entertain a motion to recess for lunch and executive session. What, sorry?
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to remind the board that we do have the second public hearing for the millage rate scheduled this evening at 6 p.m.
I was going to do that after.
My apologies, sir.
Thank you. All right, issues of real estate, litigation, and personnel. Let's vote, please.
Shall I please make a motion? Thank you. And the vote is open. And the motion passes, 5 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, without objection, we will resume the regular order of business.
Recording starts. Thank you, Chairman. Is there a motion to approve the request for representation in item 1 of the executive session agenda?
All right, motion to approve by Commissioner Thorne, seconded by Commissioner Abdul-Rahman. Let's vote, please.
And the vote is open.
And the motion passes, 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Is there a motion to approve a settlement in the matter of LaShawn Thompson in the amount of $4 million as set forth in item number 2 of the executive session agenda?
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Thorne, seconded by Commissioner Abdul Rahman. Please vote.
And the vote is open. And the motion passes, 6 yeas, 0 nays.
And finally, is there a motion to suspend the vehicle use policy as it pertains to the commissioners of Fulton County Board of Commissioners and their staff for a period of not less than 30 days, during which time the vehicle use policy will be updated and considered?
It's effective immediately.
Effective immediately, excuse me.
All right, motion to approve by Commissioner Abdul Rahman, seconded by Commissioner Thorne. Let's vote.
And the vote is open. And the motion passes, 6 yeas, 0 nays.
No further motions, thank you.
No further items from the executive session. Madam Clerk, anything else?
No further items.
All right, no further matters that come before us at this time. We are adjourned. As a friendly reminder, at 6 o'clock, we will reconvene rather, for the second of 2 public hearings today, promptly at 6 o'clock. Thank you.
For a written transcript of this meeting, or if you need reasonable accommodations, including this communication in an alternative format due to disability, please contact the Clerk to the Commission's office at 404-612-8232.